You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live, a little island, a little atoll off there somewhere in the ocean of madness that is this country. I am Robin Morgan, and I don't know, people keep saying, "How are you?" with their head tilted sideways, but they're miserable too, so we're all huddled together in this sort of sisterhood, and even to some extent brotherhood of misery. But there's a glimmer of hope because Elon Musk is already fighting with Trump team. So the Trump team and Elon Musk, I mean, you know, these are people with egos that are inflated to the sizes of very big, very, very big. And I want to come along with my little hat pin and puncture them. But in any event, it's very good that their egos are so inflated that they cannot possibly get along together for very long. So we have that to look forward to. I'm not sure that them warring on each other is something to look forward to, but there it is for the moment. We are turning our attention, however, always believing in keeping us on our toes, to AI, because we don't have enough to worry about. And so we have some very interesting thoughts about artificial intelligence, and we have a very interesting thinker, Debora Spar, who herself is an expert on the subject and how it interacts with reality. So we'll get started, because at the end we have fighting words. We'll get some fight together by then. But for now, let's go inside the headlines. One of the tragedies of this last general election, in addition to its result, was the relative absence of serious or prolonged discussion about the two major issues threatening life on this planet: climate change, which challenges the planet itself, and artificial intelligence, which threatens human hegemony. Yet each and both will change everything. GAI, generative artificial intelligence, is capable of generating text, images, or other media. GAI learns the patterns and structure of input training data and then generates new data that has similar characteristics. GAI will have simultaneously mastered physics, chemistry, biology, materials, science, mathematics, medicine, astronomy, Shakespeare, art, history, and a host of other fields better than any human being ever could, and be able to see patterns cutting across them in ways no human ever could. So it can both ask questions and provide answers that no human being ever could. As New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman wrote recently, polymathic artificial intelligence is not just smarter than humans in a single domain. Friedman is at work on a book about all this, written with Eric Schmidt, alert, careful, former Google CEO, and Henry Kissinger, alert, careful, former Secretary of State under Nixon, watch out again. The book, supposedly titled Genesis, Artificial Intelligence, Hope, and the Human Spirit, among other things, invokes the Bible. Alert, alert, essence of patriarchal thinking. Because the authors believed that our AI moment is an equally fundamental turning point for the entire species. They feel that we have become godlike in intentionally creating a computer with more intelligence than we were ever endowed with. The problem is that we have become godlike without agreement among us on guardrails, on a shared value system that should guide the use of our new powers. From medical breakthroughs to agricultural productivity to faster roads to fusion energy. Supposedly, this new renaissance won't be just for rich nations. An example might be a farmer in Africa, where women do 60 to 80% of all agricultural work, 50% of all animal husbandry, and 100% of all food processing. Now, this particular woman we're talking about might be pre-literate, but just think of what would happen if she had GAI to speak into a smartphone and get world-class advice in her own language and, what's more, in her own dialect on what seeds to plant, where and when, how much water and fertilizer, updated and informed every second by the experience of every other farmer in her region, nation, and the world that is planting that crop. But then think as well about how much more empowered dictators and autocrats would be, and cyber criminals or terrorists trying to create their own disinformation campaigns and bioweapons, or just politicians. And that merely covers how human beings will use new GAI tools. There's also the paramount challenge of making certain that super-intelligent machines will remain aligned with healthy, compassionate, and fully inclusive human directions, human values, and human interests, as they use these powers to proceed in their own direction. We seem to be facing huge alignment problems. The technical alignment of human values and intentions with the actions of AGI, and the diplomatic alignment of humans and their fellow humans to act together to achieve that, which has to be a global endeavor, since you cannot have one country adhering to, say, the 10 Commandments while another country operates on gangster values. But wait, let's back up a moment and look more closely at the language that got us here. Friedman himself assumes male centrality. It peeks out from the phrase, their fellow humans. And you can spot it clearly from his almost automatic use of such examples as the 10 Commandments and gangsters, which are both saturated in patriarchal imagery and morality. This is done without thinking. It's done automatically, because it's so much a part of the background you can't even perceive when it moves into the foreground. And women might do something differently. This sickens my heart and seriously cramps my attention span. Sorry, Friedman. In searching for human unifying values, these guys were so damned lazy they couldn't even stretch a muscle to include the majority of the human species, even in just throwaway language. What sane regulations can we expect from that point on? There does exist a tepid, leisurely, bipartisan movement in Congress today, led by former Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democratic Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico, and Republicans Mike Rounds of South Dakota and Todd Young of Indiana. All boys, need I say? They are reportedly working on developing a series of insight forums on how AI works, to then produce legislation in partnership with business, labor, and civil society. The idea being to address the AI revolution in ways Congress failed to do with the Internet social network revolution. Well, duh, certainly failed to regulate that. They're selling this, additionally, as a way to ensure that the European Union and China don't write the rules without us. Of course, we missed the chance to have this crucial conversation during the election, where, at least according to Friedman, 5 things will remain true regarding AGI the morning after voting is over. Polymathic general intelligence, artificial, offers us vast, unimaginable opportunities to enable people to live longer, healthier, and more abundant lives. It also offers us massive risks that simply cannot be anticipated. We don't fully understand the extent of either, so we must somehow find inclusive, globally trusted ways to control those risks while we move forward to gain the benefits and opportunities, all of which is happening faster than we can any of us believe. A little postscript here. Friedman ends his column by saying that if we elect a president who's not up to managing the intricate complexities of this double challenge, then the machines are already way smarter than we are. Clearly, he was spot on right about that part. We have to take a short break here, but I'll return directly with our special guest, Debora Spar, and AI. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Debora Spar is the MBA class of 1952 professor of business administration at Harvard Business School, and she's a senior associate dean of HBS Online. Her current research focuses on issues of gender and technology, and the interplay between technological change and broader social structures. Spar tackles some of these issues in her latest book, Work, Mate, Marry, Love: How Machines Shape Our Human Destiny. She served as president of Barnard College from 2008 to 2017. During her tenure there, she led initiatives to highlight women's leadership and advancement, including the creation of the Athena Center for Leadership Studies and the development of Barnard's Global Symposium series. She's a prolific writer, and her books include Ruling the Waves, Cycles of Discovery, Chaos, and Wealth from the Compass to the Internet. That was in 2001. The Baby Business, 2006. Wonder Woman, Sex, Power, and the Quest for Perfection, 2013. Debora, welcome back to Women's Media Center Live.
It is always such a pleasure to be here and to be with you.
Well, it's a real pleasure to have you here because you are my she who knows all person.
Hardly.
Oh, it feels that way. It really does. And I was looking over the bio again, and it says perfect thing. It says her research focuses on issues of gender and technology and the interplay between technological change and broader social structures. Bingo! Help!
Oh, good.
Help! I need you. Well, I wanted to try and discuss, which is way below your pay grade, I know, but still, stoop for those the rest of us, AI. Because it keeps coming back at us again and again and again. And now it's embedded in everywhere. It's on commercials, on television. It's, it's just common. It's accepted without being understood by anyone that I know of. And I know some pretty smart people, not only you, but others too. And I don't know what to do about it. I mean, I don't know whether to be terrified or to want it to have rights or what.
Yeah, I mean, it's you and I have known each other for a long time, so I think you have some sense of how my strange brain works on these.
Yeah, and
But
I
I
love
always
it.
like to oh, good, thank you. I always like to approach things historically,
Yeah.
particularly when we're dealing with things that feel so not only present but futuristic.
Yes,
And
yes.
and I think for AI, it's at least useful to kind of pinpoint it in history because it feels like it happened 12 months ago,
Right.
but it didn't. What prompted or propelled this thing into public discourse and
Mm.
into public both dreams and fears was a particular form of AI, which
Mhm.
is Chat GPT.
Mm.
So put that aside for a moment, but just put a pin in it, as the kids would say.
Okay.
That's what has gotten everybody so recently agitated. But
Okay.
the idea of AI goes, one can argue it goes back millennia or at least centuries, that there does seem to be something about our species, for better or worse, that we've always kind of tried to imagine robots.
Mhm.
If you go back to mythology, I mean, look
Of
how many
course.
myths are about
Oh,
gods creating humans in their
golems
image.
and yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. We've always had these myths, again for better or worse, that we were created by versions, better, worse, bigger versions of ourselves,
Right.
and that we in turn will create versions of ourselves. I mean, it's the Bible, right?
Yeah, it's
Look where
placing
Adam and Eve both came from.
us on the grid. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be scared of it, but I just think it's there seems to be something very human about building artificial humans. So do with that what you will. But I'm deeply intrigued by that. And then if you go more recently and you start looking in sort of the late Middle Ages, the Renaissance, again there was this whole fascination with building animatrons.
Ah,
My favorite one, he was on display at the Met last year, the mechanical monk. These are things that in
oh,
retrospect look silly to us now or quaint, but think about
Da
alarm
Vinci
clocks.
did his own
Da
versions of them,
Vinci.
yeah.
Exactly. Trying to create replicas of humans that moved
Yeah.
and maybe thought. And there was a whole sort of subgenre of these machines
Uh-huh.
that looked like they might be thinking. Now, of course, they weren't, but
Uh-huh.
I just try and reassure people. It's not just the folks in Silicon Valley who have these dreams.
Yeah.
They've been around for a long time. They didn't begin to be even vaguely possible, though, until the birth of computers.
Of course.
And people know this story quite well, but really the first person who began to dream of artificial intelligence in a vaguely possible way was Alan Turing.
Yeah.
The genius
Yes, he
who broke
was.
the Enigma codes,
Yeah.
um, was closeted homosexual who
Killed
killed
himself.
himself. So it's just one of the most tragic stories
Yeah.
of modern history. And Turing was the guy who famously came up with what was now called the Turing test, which wasn't an actual test, but which was more of a metaphysical question.
Uh-huh.
Would we ever be able to create intelligence, artificial intelligence, that was indistinguishable from human intelligence?
Uh-huh.
And that that question of the Turing test has been sort of in the realm of computer scientists and maybe some philosophers for the past 60 or so years,
Mhm.
with the idea that it's an interesting question, but we're not there yet.
Uh-huh.
And so we've had computing power get stronger and stronger, and computers get smarter and smarter, if we want to use that word. But we didn't have anything that people felt was vaguely akin to human like intelligence until a couple of years ago.
Uh-oh.
But again, I pause on the history there because it's not just 18 months ago. If you think of all of the computers that have invaded all of our lives
Yep.
for, I don't know, 10, 15 years now, Netflix knows your preferences better than you do.
I know. I
My
know.
phone knows more about my personal life than my husband does.
Yep.
We have been turning over not so much decisions, but the analytical basis of decisions. It's not quite
Yeah.
thought, but the
Data
analytical
and
basis of
ideas
decisions,
and
data and ideas, and the connections between them. for 10, 15, 20, I don't know the precise years, but it's a while. It's not brand new.
Mhm.
But what we really saw coming to the fore with ChatGPT is a particular form of artificial intelligence. And I'm not a computer scientist, so I will give you the the real sort of man woman in the street view of this.
That's what I
But
want.
but all right, good. So ChatGPT is a particular version of a large language model, which basically takes every bit of information that it could sweep off the internet,
Uh-huh.
and it predicts, really what it's doing is just predicting what word is most likely to come after the word before it.
Huh.
If you're at the end of the document and you see the word the large language model can now predict that the most likely word to come after the is end.
Uh-huh.
It's just predicting words. And again, to just make people
I
feel
see.
comfortable, I find it's a hugely annoying thing on my text,
Uh-huh.
that now tells me,
It's over.
if I write, well, not even if I write to a good friend of mine or, group chat, hey, that you look at your phone, it auto populates, hey guys, or
Oh,
hey
yeah.
friends, or
Yeah.
good evening. Right? We've had these annoying things. I've had them
Yes.
annoying things on our phones and on
They
our,
are
depending how
annoying.
you use your computer.
Yeah.
Those are simpler versions of large language models.
I see.
And they're predicting text. ChatGPT took that basic idea and it scooped up way more data,
Uh-huh.
all of which is hard to do and super expensive, threw massive amounts of computing power at it,
Uh-huh.
and came up with a system, a model, a being, an
Uh-huh.
algorithm that is just really, really, really good at
Wow.
text prediction, so much so that what it's giving you certainly doesn't feel like text prediction. It feels closer to knowledge
You know
or
that
answers.
they're churning up the books this way. I mean, I was
Yeah.
informed by someone that they were using The Demon Lover of Mine and 2 or 3 other books, and nobody asked my permission
Nope.
to do this.
Nope.
They just fed it
Nope.
to them.
No, exactly.
I mean, it's really
Eh,
a little off-putting. It's just,
to say the least.
you know, and among humans we call this plagiarism, but never mind. Go on.
Right. Well, there's two completely separate sort of responses to what you just said. We can go whichever direction you want. One of them is the somewhat depressing, perhaps not even so depressing, notion of what it means to write a book. So if I read one of your books,
Mm.
and I'm not saying this just to be nice, I find insights and combinations of words and thoughts and stories that I've never seen before. It feels completely new and novel to me, and it
Mhm.
is. But if I look at, let's say, a Harlequin romance
Mhm. I
or
see.
vampire fan fiction, which I'll say I know absolutely nothing about,
Mm.
um, there's a formula there.
Of course.
Harlequin romances have a certain formula to them.
Yeah.
Certain kinds of Hollywood movies have formulas. And so it's not all that unreal to imagine a machine that's read every single Harlequin romance ever
And
to
mimics
kind
it.
of know he
Uh-huh.
ripped her bodice.
Bodice.
There's
Bodice coming
certain
around the bend. Yep.
patterns.
Yep.
That's right. There's certain patterns of words, and
Okay.
that's what the machines are doing. So, can they replace an original Robin Morgan poem? No. Can they write some other stuff that people will read?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, apparently, one of the areas where this has started to become quite pervasive already is in travel writing. When you
Uh-huh.
think about it,
Of course. Of course. There's
there's
a
a real
formula.
formula to those books, right? So a
Yep.
lot of, sadly, what we consume is formulaic, and
Mhm.
that's where the machines are going to be quite good quite fast.
Well, that's
It,
the scary part comes in who controls this, because if you have um I'm pretty pissed at him at the moment, Jeff Bezos.
mm,
But if you have Jeff Bezos or Amazon or one of the billionaires controlling it, they can choose what they want. They can go for the lowest, cheapest common denominator, which will always outpace anything of quality, pretty much,
yes. Yep.
So So that means that real people, I know my son, Blake, who, we've met, is a musician, and he is being, driven crazy by what's happening in the music world. And
Right.
the complete, it's beyond piracy. It's just eating alive. So go on, go on, go
But
on.
right, no, but that goes back to sort of the two directions or two separate questions to think about. One question is what are the machines doing? And this is what they're doing, and they're very good at it, and they're going to get better and better. The other question is who controls the machines? And to your earlier point, who controls the text that has gone into the machines?
Yeah.
So I'm about when we get off this call, I'm going to go teach a class on capitalism, which I do at Harvard Business School. And one of the central questions we deal with, which is actually a question, is what is the nature of property? Because property, and this is non-obvious, I think, property is a construct. Even the most basic form of property we've become used to, which is land ownership, it's a relatively new construct. People know, most native populations, most indigenous cultures didn't have a property right in land. It's a construct. More recently, people created property rights in things like music, property rights in things like books.
Right.
And that was a fight.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the earliest warriors for intellectual property rights, if you will, were Gilbert and Sullivan, who created, a modern opera, musical theater.
That's right.
And had to fight to create a property right in that. So what we're seeing now, and it's just happened so quickly, is so these machines have come along. I mean, using obviously machines in the trivial sense here.
Yeah.
Machines have come along and they have sucked up every single bit of content on the internet. My books, your books, everything that's written that was out there in digital format has now been hoovered up.
Right.
And we can sort of blame the overlords who did that, but it's sort of like, blaming the folks who sort of put in farmland in the Midwest before there was any.
I see.
They've claimed a property right that was just kind of there for the taking because society hadn't thought, hang on, we need to put a fence around this.
Yeah, right.
And so there's a big court case right now with the New York Times suing OpenAI.
Yeah.
And I think that court case is going to be hugely important in establishing whether or not there are property rights in data that are used to train models.
Wow. It boggles the mind. It's a mind boggler because also, if I turn my head a tiny bit and I look at medicine and I see what AI can do with people who were paralyzed and how an implant somewhere can make somebody walk again, even though that they haven't been able to. I mean, there's the modern miracles in medicine alone are extraordinary. I mean, I've become bionic because I have an implant from Parkinson's disease, and it stopped the tremors. It just stopped them.
Yeah.
And it's AI, and I I don't like having AI in my spine, but on the other hand, it's a moral conundrum.
Well, and I think, as with many technologies, and again, this is why I like to think historically, when they first emerge, they tend to set off these extreme reactions. People fall in love with them. They become quite utopian. This particular sort of technology, whether it's radio or telegraphy or
will save us all.
The printing press, it will save us all or it will kill us all. And with very few exceptions, most of these, and this is what I wrote about in my 2001 book, Ruling the Waves, most of them wind up falling somewhere in the middle. And it's not because the technology itself has any agenda. It doesn't. These are tools. What happens, in my opinion, is we as flawed humans try to figure out how can we use this technology what are the most exciting things we can do? People who have a profit-seeking motive try to figure out how to make money from it.
Yep.
And others of us slowly and falteringly come along and say, well, hang on, I really in favor of doing drug development this way because it's going to save so many lives and so much money. I mean, the potential for drug development here in my mind is mind-blowing. But gee, I want the drug development piece, but I'd really rather not have my intellectual creations
Right.
sucked up and sold without my permission.
Right.
And we, as humans and as members of a society, we have the ability to put guardrails around these things. Haven't done it yet with AI because it's so new and we're still sort of trying to figure out what
Yeah.
it's about. But if you talk, as I've had the ability to do with some of the folks who do live in this world,
Yeah.
they are actually, more so than the folks who created social media, in my humble opinion, they're
I think so
aware
too.
of the need for guardrails, in part because they're so young. They remember, what happened when social media exploded, and we're
Yeah.
now saying, oh, gee, maybe it wasn't a great idea
Yeah.
to have absolutely no restrictions on what you could post on.
Everybody has
favorite
a
or least favorite.
megaphone. Yeah. Megaphones for all.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there is more of a sense now that even among the people who are, not among all of them, but some of the folks who are driving the technology,
Yeah.
that we want some rules here. We don't know quite what they are yet, but we want some things and not other things. And in my more optimistic moments, I think we will sort of slowly and haltingly find our way towards at least some of these rules over time. Nobody wants the machines killing us. I mean, that's an extreme example.
Yeah, of course.
But people don't want. They're worried about the military applications.
Of course.
Worried about pathogenic implications. So
Yep.
the concerns in this regard are at least relatively well known. In part, to kind of go full circle here, in part because as a species, again, we've kind of been thinking about this for a really long time. If you compare it to social media was really new. We didn't
Yep.
know quite what that was going to be when it grew up. It turned out it wasn't so exciting, but we
Yeah.
didn't know
We
what
didn't know.
Facebook was going to be.
Yeah.
With AI, with robots,
The shadow has been there for some time, hasn't it?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The fears and the dreams have been
Yeah.
there for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And the hope. Isn't
Yeah.
it? Oh, you are amazing. I mean, you make everything both understandable and if not palatable, tolerable, and if not tolerable,
You're very
interesting.
kind.
No. It is quite extraordinary. I mean, you just trundle on in there and say, well, da-dum, 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 and then I understand it. And I can go
Oh,
around
good.
and lord it over other people who don't understand a damn thing. But I can't go too deep because I don't want to make an idiot of myself. But I can approximate it. Oh, are you going to do a book about this? Another book? Or are you doing
I'm
another book
doing
anyway?
pieces of it. I'm doing pieces of it. I'm trying to figure out how best to work it into some of the other stuff I'm doing. Because I do think it connects to these other issues. I think the property rights piece is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think this is the part that sounds most way out there. But I do think, again, going back to our fears and dreams from forever, if this stuff, and I'm not talking about the drug development piece here, but if you look at one of the other areas of where people or companies are developing AI companions,
Yes.
the more lifelike these things become, the more we have to think about what they are. Because I do think they'll become increasingly lifelike, and I think we will fall in love with them.
Well, we're doing it already. Do you know? Have you heard the China story?
No.
Well, there are. I have a friend who's making a film about this. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
There are, of course, many more men than women in China because China screwed it up with the,
Yeah.
one-child policy, and there were
Yeah.
so many girl babies slaughtered. So there are very few women for the men, and the men go
Yeah.
mateless, and they get very cranky and upset.
Right.
And so, okay, and they're dangerous when they get cranky and upset. So they're off there. The women have now a whole, I don't know how to convey it, a virtual set of boyfriends who are really very loving. The women design them. They
Yeah.
are very
Yeah.
sensitive. They are very responsive. They fulfill all of a woman's needs. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and they exist in reverse too. I mean, there are
oh
female
yeah,
companions for men and male companions for females, and people really take to them.
yeah. Well, she
You know.
she was doing research in terms of women, and she was blown away because the women
Yeah.
defend them vociferously and say, "I don't see why I should,
Yeah.
have to put up with a man." And I mean, the
Right.
real, I
Smells
mean,
bad,
and
and
all of his, who needs it? I mean, I can
right.
have whatever I want whenever I want it, and it's extraordinary. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that exists in some. I don't know what to call it,
Yeah.
capacity.
Right.
And
No, and one of my colleagues just did this fascinating research, very academic research, but there was a company that has created these AI companions, and they had to change the program because they decided they didn't want these things sexting, which they had been, and
oh
the
my God,
users were just devastated. I mean, people were threatening to kill themselves because
oh
the
my
program had been changed. Yeah.
God, oh,
Yeah.
it's a,
So it's happening. It's
yeah.
happening. It's still a little fringy, but the fringes have a
Well,
tendency of moving
yeah,
moving mainstream.
to center stage. God.
Yeah.
Well, I'm awfully glad you're on the case. It's very comforting to me somehow when Spar is
Oh,
on the
good.
case. Yeah, it
Good.
means things can't go too terribly wrong.
Oh,
At
don't
least
bet on that.
okay.
Don't try.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, well. Anyway, I'll cling to it for what it's worth,
Oh, good.
because at least it's explained, and I like to understand. Even if something is going to kill me, I'd like to understand it
I
first.
like to know what's about to hit me
Yeah,
exactly.
precisely. Oh, my dear, bless
Yeah,
your dear heart, and keep me apprised on the next book.
of course. Thank you. You stay well.
It's time for one more break, and then I'll return with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Mary Shelley, the Terminator, and Hal. Those are fighting words. Golems and Dybbuk's and automatons already stalked through nightmares long before Mary Godwin Shelley, daughter of the great feminist thinker and writer Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, and lover or partner of the poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, wrote the first novel, Frankenstein, centering such a creature. Frankenstein was the name of the doctor who created the creature, not the name of the creature itself. Mary wrote the story when she was astonishingly young, only 21, in a sense to put an end to such stories. Its subtitle was The Modern Prometheus, and she conceived it not as a horror story about a monster, but rather as the tale of a perfect creation of unblemished beauty and intelligence, who, through cruel mistreatment, is reduced to the state of murderous monsterhood. It was influenced by her arguments about women, inherited and continued from her mother. It contested the male wish to procreate by itself and by himself. It was, in a way, a defense of motherhood, and certainly a defense of full womanhood, female creativity in all its forms. It was also a fierce rebuttal of the common views of that period, which persist still, that refuse outright or avoid or sidestep or ignore or patronize seeing women's full creativity as human beings. Mary remained a political radical throughout her life, and her writing often posited that cooperation, empathy, and sympathy, particularly as practiced by women, were the ways to reform civil society. This was a direct challenge to Enlightenment political theories articulated by her father, brilliant though he was, William Godwin, and by the individualistic romantic ethos promoted by Percy Shelley. But back to the creature. When, at the book's end, the creature finally turns on his human visitor in the vast, wasted, icy north, he does so out of rage and anguish, an anguish that the visitor himself cannot even perceive. The creature then steps fully outside any recognition or understanding of respect and rushes toward death. Death, like respect, is reserved for the human, for flesh and blood. Machines stand outside this construct. Sure, we've had our Terminators courtesy of Schwarzenegger and our soft-spoken, menacing Hals thanks to Stanley Kubrick. But respect, as cleverly designed and defined, by other humans, is rationed in our world. It's a synonym for what is white, male, and heterosexual, preferably young and fully abled. If you're lacking in these, you are other. Other is woman. Other is child until puberty. Other is disabled or old or black or brown or poor or too unusual. Anything mechanistic is decidedly other. Daring to see the familiar in what is considered other is a political act. Although always or exclusively seeking the familiar may well be a megalomaniacal act, if you do it all the time or exclusively. Perhaps it would be better to specify instead, daring to recognize the familiar in the other is a political act. For instance, I can't remember a time when I wasn't drawn to what grown people explained was the underdog. When I was given a set of expensive Little Women dolls around age 8 or 9, I ignored 3 of them to focus on the Beth, who was the plainest and also cross-eyed, an error of the manufacturer, and I refused to let them return her for a better one. The first story I ever wrote, when I was about 10, I think, was the biography of Cain from his perspective. Not surprisingly, Abel came off like a spoiled brat. My sympathies were all with Cain, not because he was a murderer, but because the value system that defined him as such, and only as such, didn't sit well with my 11-year-old self. I don't know where these sympathies came from, but they motivated the politics of my childhood. Years and years later, I was involved in a discussion about computers and about the mysterious future they held for humanity, how they would do all the housework, all the work there was, how they would toil on our behalf. Silly 1950s and 1960-ish dreams, all computerized, dreams that hover mostly around talking dishwashers and vacuum cleaners and flying cars. But I found myself quickly thinking, if all these were robotized, then the workforce, the new workforce, the robotic workforce, should be unionized, no? I mean, it really boiled down to a very simple equation for me. If one group of people had nothing they had to do, no demands made on them, only perks and luxuries and good stuffs, and another group of people had all the labor, that was inherently unfair, and it required a complete reevaluation of the circumstances. This came down to who or what is human. The human species is already severely unbalanced. Tiny globs of it puff out like bubbles, extruding from the mass on purpose or due to privilege, standing out because of inheritance and status, or because of some strange innate characteristics like talent, sacrifice, luck, courage, while others remained all glommed together in one turgid mass. Mozart. If we were to try to separate this out and distribute it into individual parcels, my, what would the result be? I am not imagining the forcible equalizing of value, but rather recognizing what value is already there and respecting it. Perhaps it's naive to think of rights for robots, since we're talking about machines after all, yet the unease I experience in simply dismissing such a concept tells me something. After all, the subject is not new. And our history, well, it's studded with myriad of campaigns. Human beings all trying to become human, to be seen, recognized, treated as such. Tribes by other tribes, nations by other nations, bloodlines by class lines, by caste, by belief systems and religions, by race and ethnicities, by age and abilities, over and over, the search for ways to differentiate, not to unite, those seen as different. The longed-for yet fatal concept, difference. Unique, meaning therefore unwelcome, dangerous. Why, I think to myself, why is the familiar not simply that, the unfamiliar? What makes it inherently threatening? Is our amygdala, the alarm center of the brain, so primed that curiosity cannot have its voice along with warning? Surely warning has its value, but given our silos filled with hundreds of nuclear weapons, haven't we overdone it? Is it just a sign of sentimental slobbery to wait in hope for greetings from strangers, only to find oneself devastated by loss, or worse, eradicated? Is overriding curiosity only a characteristic of the scientist, or the poet, or the hero, or the fool? Philip K. Dick, the extraordinary science fiction writer who was compared to Shakespeare, once said that there were basically only two questions that interested him. What was human, and what was reality? Well, yes, Philip, that just about sums it up. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.